Now let's look at some specific examples of rhythms. We'll look at just pure rhythm without any pitches on a 5-line staff, so we can concentrate on these durations and patterns. These examples are from a wonderful book called Studying Rhythm by Anne Hall. It's out of print, but it's worth getting a copy if you can buy a used copy from online somewhere. So we're going to start with the very first example at the top of the page. It says 1E here. And we're looking at a meter that says 2/4. Let's think about all the things about a 2/4 meter that we could determine without even looking at the specific rhythms inside this little example. 2/4. The top number of the time signature is less than or equal to 5. So this is a simple meter. We know that each beat will have subdivisions of 2 little nice even pieces, 1 and 2 and 1. We also know that it is a duple meter, that there will be 2 beats in each measure because the top number is a 2, so duple. This is an example of a duple simple meter, duple simple. Okay, so far so good. We also will know by looking at the time signature that the unit that gets the beat, the M&M if you will, that gets the beat is the quarter note because there's a 4 in the bottom. If I were to write 1/4 as a fraction, how would I say that? 1/4. What's another word for 1/4? A quarter note. Okay. Now, in this example, we're going to figure out where the beats go, the number words. I'm going to deal with the little pickup measure later. I'm going to start with the first measure here, that is the first full measure. The first thing that happens in any measure is the beat word, the number 1. Have I used up all of the first quarter note beat? Why, no, I haven't. I've only used part of that beat. Here's its subdivision, this other little 8th note. I'm going to call it and I'm going to abbreviate it that way because it's hard to write in here. 1 and, well, now that beat is done. The next thing that happens is the next beat. So I say the number word, 2 and. Let's keep going. The next measure shows a quarter note using up all of beat 1. 1 is all I have to write. The next thing that happens, I bump into beat 2. 2 and. The next measure, 1. I bump into beat 2, but it's a rest. I'm going to put it in parentheses. I won't say it out loud or clap it out loud. It's a rest, but I have to think it. I can't avoid thinking it. And then I'm going to write and on this remaining quarter note there. Okay, I'm going to keep going. 1 and 2. 1, 2 and. Okay, next measure, 1, 2 is silent again, but there's an and. Okay. Now, I'm going to go back and deal with the pickup note. If we look at the pickup measure and the very last measure, we notice they are both incomplete. The first pickup measure has only an 1/8 note's worth. The last measure has a quarter plus an 1/8. It's almost 2 quarter notes worth. It's short 1/8 note. Why? That's the 1/8 note that is at the beginning. There's a convention in music that whenever we have a pickup measure, we take its value, the rest of the value to finish the measure comes at the very end of the example. So if I add up the last measure plus the pickup measure, I get a complete measure's worth. Okay, but you want to know, how do I count the pickup measure? I can't count it as 1 because it's not a complete beat by itself. The answer is I count as if it's the last possible thing in a measure. If I had a whole complete measure of 2/4 and the last thing in it was an 1/8 note, what would I call it? Well, if I look at the very first complete measure, here was an 1/8 note at the very end, and I called it and. So I'm going to call this and. That means by the time I get to this final measure, there'll be a 1, and a silent 2, and its and is really back at the beginning at the pickup. So let's count. I'm going to count, and you could count along with me, the first line of this example. So here's our beat. 1, 2, 1, 2. How do the eighth notes feel? 1, 2, 1, and 2, and 1, and 2, and 1, and 2, and. Okay, here I go. I'm going to start counting, starting with the and, that is the pickup measure. Here I go. And 1, and 2, and 1, 2, and 1, and 1, and 2, 1, 2, and 1. And then we're on the second line, aren't we? Do that with me. Again, if you didn't do it with me last time, now's your chance. When we get to the end of this line, we're going to keep on going to the second line of music, but I'm not going to write the counts in. We want to write counts in only when we need to. So some of you, counting in this way is a new way to count, and you might want to write them in for a while. But you want to push yourself to see the groups of notes and patterns as just like, oh yeah, I can count this, no problem. You want to make that happen as soon as possible. That's why we're doing this summer theory success. Okay, here's our beat. 1, 2, beginning, go. And 1, and 2, and 1, 2, and 1, and 1, and 2, 1, 2, and 1, and 1, 2, and 1, and 2, and 1, 2, and 1, and 2, and 1, and 2, and 1. Did you catch the rests in the second line? Did you fall into those rests? Those are traps, aren't they? Waiting for us to just accidentally make a sound. So we have to do that sort of mental thinking and subdividing and beat counting in our head without doing it out loud, right? Also, you might have noticed that I'm holding my voice out during the quarter notes so that I'm showing how long they are. If I clap this rhythm, I can't show that holding out of sounds. The clap is going to dissipate pretty quickly. It won't sound great online here with the microphone I'm using right now, but such as it is, I'm going to clap 1E, and you could clap it with me. Is it okay if you say the counting while you clap? Sure, that's fine too. I'm going to do a little bit of both. Here I go. This is clapping 1E. 1 and 2, and here we go. 1, quarter, rest, and 1, and 2, 1, 2, and 1. Next line, 1, 2, and 1, and 2, and 1, 2, and 1, and 2, and 1. Okay, so there is an example right there. You are going to want to practice the other examples on the page. I'm going to jump us down quickly here to 1F and show one interesting little thing here. 1F is also a simple duple meter, and it's going to start off 1 and 2. The next measure is the same, 1 and 2. I won't write that in. 1, hello, 2, and this measure has a rest in it. It's 2 beats of rest. Now, some of you might say, wait, that's a whole rest. It's hanging below its little line. It's heavy. It's full of 4 quarter note beats. Well, okay, but also whole rests get used when there's an entire measure of rest. It doesn't matter what the meter is, you can plonk a whole rest, and it just means nothing happens during this measure. Just count it like normal, 2 beats. Okay, so I'll put those in parentheses. 1, 2. Now here's an interesting little rhythm. Some of you, perhaps the instrumentalists, will recognize this is a common beginning instrumental reading exercise, isn't it? It's syncopation. It's where the beats don't fall easily, where we have sort of accents or hits on the notes where they don't fall on the number words. Watch this. Here's 1, but we've only used half of 1. So the next thing I say has to be the and. But that's not an eighth note. It's worth more than an eighth note. And 2 is also inside here. You can see the person who used this book before came to this measure and wrote a question mark on it. And then we figured it out in class. That's what happened. And. So this measure, 1 and 2 and. 1 and 2 and. The 2 doesn't get said. We're holding through. 1 and. And then we keep going. That same syncopation happens a bunch in this exercise. And that's why it's a good idea to sort of learn these patterns so that you don't have to write them in every time. Let's say the counting of 1F. Here's our beat. 1, 2, say with me. 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 1, 2, and 1 and 1 and 2, 1 and 1, 2, and 1 and 1, 2, and 1 and 1 and 1 and 2 and cool. I just realized that my little red dot on my pen makes a great bouncing ball. I'll tell you more about that someday. What was the bouncing ball in early movie screens? That's a good trivia question, and Dr. Wisner and I could both answer it. Okay, let's go to another example here. Here's another example, a different time signature. This is 3/4 time, and so that means that this is a triple simple meter. Triple simple, triple because the top number is 3, telling us we have 3 beats. Simple because the top number is less than or equal to 5. That means that, okay, what we see, the beat, is the actual quarter note here, 3/4. That is the actual beat. And it's simple because we know that if we drop a quarter note on the ground, it breaks into 2 easy pieces. The first thing that it breaks into is even numbers, 2 pieces, simple meter. Okay, so this, we're going to look at 2E, why not? And so we've got a nice little pickup with our rule that says make the pickup the last possible thing in a measure. What could the last possible quarter note in a measure of 3 beats? 1, 2, 3. What will it be? It will be a 3. So we'll say 3. 1. We don't say 2. We hold out our voice because the half note is lasting that long. 3 and. 1, 2, and 3 and. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and 1. We don't say 2 because there's a rest. 3 and 1, 2, 3 and. Okay, let's say this one. Let's count. Now this little example has little phrase markings above the staff. That's to show us how those notes would group together musically. That's not a tie. A tie would group from one note head to another note head. And so that's just to get people used to looking at different musical markings. We're going to ignore it for now. Well, I hope you're musical anyway, but we'll deal with that another day. So here's our beat. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. We're going to say it. 1, 2, and we're going to start with the pickup on the third beat. Okay, here we go. 3, 1, 3, and 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 2, 3, and 1, 3, and 1, 2, 3, and 1, and 2, 3, and 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 3, and 1, 3, and 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3 and 1, 3 and 1 and 2, 3 and 1, 2, 3, 1. I forgot about the red dot again halfway through, but that's okay. Okay, let's do one more here. And in a little while, I'm going to add another video that shows you how to get from 1 meter to another, from 3/4 to 3/2 or 3/8. I'll deal with that in a separate video. This video is all about counting and feeling those rhythms, okay? Some of you who are singers, you may have had a teacher who has told you to take whatever the shortest note value is, like the 8th note, and make it a whole long, slow beat. We're going to get you past that. You need to go fast enough that the beats feel musical and feel like there's a flow. Suddenly the music makes way more sense than if you slow it down to the sort of atomic level. It's hard to perceive what the composer intended. Okay, let's look at 2G here, and then we'll do one more example after that, and then we'll stop this video. So this one also has a pickup, and it's a quarter note. What's the last possible thing it could be? It could be a 3. Okay. 1 and 2, 3. 1 and 2 and 3. Now they've beamed these eighth notes together. They're not 16th notes, are they? They don't have an extra beam on them. That's again one of these printing conventions. I prefer that you beam all the notes only within beats, like these examples, 1 and 2, 3 and. The eighth notes are only beamed within beat 1 or within beat 3. But I didn't print this book that we're using here, so I can't do anything about it. And that's only because I want you to know where the beats are. Okay? So we come to this measure, 1 and 2, silent, and 3. There's one of our syncopations. That looks really hard to read. 1 and 3. 1, 2, 3, and. Okay, here we go. See if you can say it with me. I'm going to do it twice. And so if you don't catch it all the first time, you say, oh my gosh, that went by too fast. Don't give up. You got to jump in and do it again. Or if there's a particular measure that you didn't quite understand, stop the video, count it out, figure it out, and then hit play again. So here's our first time through 2G. 1, 2, 3, ready, go. 3, 1 and 2, 3, 1 and 2 and 3, 1 and 3, 1, 2, 3 and 1. 3, 1 and 2, 3 and 1 and 2 and 3, 1 and 3 and 1 and 2, 3 and 1. 3, 1 and 2, 3, 1 and 2 and 3. Syncopation, 1 and 3, 1 and 3 and 1. 3 and 1 and 2, 3, 1 and 3, 1 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1. How'd you do? Did you keep up? Sometimes people need a little reminder that you have to look with your eyes ahead to the next line so that you don't slow down. Another thing to practice, as I'm sure any of your teachers in the past have said, is the idea of keeping going. Even if you say something wrong, you say a wrong number word or whatever, keep going. What we're really trying to do is feel the rhythmic pulses. We're trying to feel how the music is meant to go. And stopping and starting in the middle of it kind of destroys that whole plan. It's like trying to get on a train or a bus or something and be on schedule and get where you need to go. And if you stop on the way, the schedule is wrecked. Which doesn't help if you're not traveling by train or bus, but I speak from experience. I can tell you that. Okay, let's do this again. Here we go. By the way, you can also conduct the 3 pattern that you'll see in your little theory book. So it would be down, out, up, down, out, up. Whichever hand is your stronger hand or your dominant hand. 1, 2, 3. Can you conduct and say? I'm doing it here in my office as if you can see me right now. I'm screen sharing, so of course you can't. So you can conduct as you go. That's another way to make this more complex, and it helps you keep the beat, and it helps you internalize the beat into your body. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. Ready, say. 3, 1 and 2, 3, 1 and 2 and 3, 1 and 3, 1, 2, 3 and 1. 3, 1 and 2, 3 and 1 and 2 and 3, 1 and 3 and 1 and 2, 3 and 1. 3, 1 and 2, 3, 1 and 2 and 3, 1 and 3, 1 and 3 and 1. 3 and 1 and 2, 3, 1 and 3, 1 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1. How'd that go? Okay. Now we're going to take another example and we're going to do one in 4/4 time. So I'm going to look at 4D down here, 4/4 time. And this example has some other kinds of note values and indications in it. It has dotted note values and it has ties. Okay, I'm going to draw a little bit on the bottom of the page to illustrate those a little. Let's talk about the meter first. 4/4, so that is a quadruple simple meter. I'll stick it over there. 4 beats in each measure. Yes, those 4 beats are each quarter note beats right now. They could be half note beats, they could be eighth note beats, but that's what they are right now. Okay. The notes that have dots on them, a dotted quarter note is the same as a quarter plus half its value. The dot means add half the note value. So a quarter plus an eighth note. It's going to last longer than a beat in this time signature. So we're going to have to use some of our clever counting. A tie is the same kind of thing. It means hold the first note you got to and add the second note's value to it. Don't say a new note. So we only say the counts, the actions where notes begin. We don't say the rests or the held out tied notes, but we obey them. We hold the note out for that length, but we don't say anything new during them. Let's see if we can figure this out. Okay, pickup note. It has to be the last possible thing in the measure. The last possible thing. That would be an and. And, okay, the next thing, this is the beginning of the measure. It has to be a 1. Now, beat 1 is a quarter note, and beat 2 would be the next quarter note. We've leaked over past beat 2 by half of its value. So I'm going to put 2 in parentheses and make a kind of squiggly there. Where's the rest of the quarter note beat 2? It's this little eighth note. See how together they add up to 2 quarter note beats? Okay. 3. Same thing happens here. Beat 4 is inside it. And I'm going to keep going. 1 and 2 and 3. It leaked over too long. There's beat 4. And that's the and after 4. 1. That's the and, so I won't worry about it. 2. And I don't have to worry about that. Here's beat 3 in the rest. And part of beat 4. And, okay, 1, beat 2 is inside it, but not all of it. There's and. 3, 4 is inside it. And, oh, there's a tie there. Can you see that little tie? So I won't say 1 on the next line. This is waiting to catch us. And 2, and 3, and. Oh, this is full of so many traps. We won't say beat 1, but we will say beat 2. Wow, this has got a lot in it. Let's just do it that far. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, say. And 1, and 3, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 1, 2, and 1, and 3, tied note, and 2, and 3, and 2. Okay? I'm going to keep going. We're going to start right here where we left off, but I'm not going to write it in. I'm just going to count it. Okay? Notice how the notes are largely beamed so that we beam within beats or beam within beats 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. That's to help your eyes be able to track where we are on the page. Okay, I'm going to start on this and right in the middle line here. 1, 2, here we go. And 1, 2, and 4, and 1, and 4, and 1, 2, and 1 and 3 and 2 and 3 and 1. Now, that might be a lot of syncopation and a lot of like, wow, visual overload if you are not used to thinking through counting in this way. Let's do the whole thing one more time, and then we're going to pause the video, and that's enough for one video. Here we go, right at the beginning. 1, 2. By the way, if you want to conduct while you do this, the pattern is down, in towards the core of your body, whichever way, if you're right-handed or left-handed. So it'll go down, in, out, up if you're right-handed, down, in, out, up if you're left-handed. Okay, you could conduct while you count. If that just seems like you're going to fall out of your chair trying to do 2 things at once, then don't do it yet. That's okay. Here we go. The important thing is to get your eyes used to reading and your body used to internalizing that rhythmic feel. 1, 2, here we go. And 1 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1, 2 and 1 and 3 and 2 and 3 and 2 and 1, 2 and 4 and 1 and 4 and 1, 2 and 1 and 3 and 2 and 3 and 1. Okay, again, don't despair if this seems like it's going faster than it should. I sort of jumped ahead to a little more complex example. But all the rhythms on this page and the previous pages, you could pause the video and look at any of those rhythms and practice saying them and conducting maybe, or you could practice clapping them and saying them. The important thing is to get your eyes used to seeing rhythmic patterns in a sort of planned out, not panicky way. Okay, great work.